Hello, welcome back to the Merchant of Venice, Act 3, Scene 2. This is a big scene. The last scene was a crazy important scene, but this one is big. We have several things going on. We have Bassanio making his choice, and that involves quite a bit. He makes his choice, and then we have the post-choice conversations, things that happen after he makes his choice, and some things happen because of the choice he made. And then we are introduced to a new plot line about the rings. And this is crazy fun, and it's just now starting. And when the rings are exchanged, Lorenzo shows up with Salanio? I can't remember off the top of my head. I've got to check my notes. We'll get to it when we get there. But he shows up with Antonio's letter. Okay, let's talk about Bassanio's choice. He's ready to make his choice right away, and Portia wants him to wait. We start with Portia's monologue, and the first thing she says, "I pray you, tarry, pause a day or two." Right? She doesn't want him to make the choice. If he chooses wrong, then he's got to leave, and she wants to spend time with him. I would not lose you, she says. And then she says, "A maiden hath no tongue, but thought I would detain you here for a month or two before you venture for me." She's really excited to see him, but she can't be forward. She can't express how she really feels to Bassanio because of her maiden-like modesty. Juliet made the same kind of protests during the balcony scene. Okay, this is a very Shakespearean idea, that this girl has ideas, but she has to be too modest to show them. Portia is a crazy strong character. We're going to see some things she does later. So it's interesting how she talks about this modesty. She mentions keeping him there for a month or two, and I could teach you how to choose right, she says. She would keep him there and teach him which cask to choose without coming out and telling him, because that would be kind of breaking her father's rule, and it would break her oath on sitting back, because she's taken an oath too. She can't tell anybody what caskets have been chosen or anything. But then she says she would be forsworn, and she's like, half of me is yours, and then the other half of me is yours. All of me is yours. And she has to wait for him to make the choice. So Bassanio's like, just let me choose. I am on the rack. I'm being tortured here. And this is interesting. He says he's on the rack, which is a nice little torture device. And it's used to get confessions from someone, right? You think somebody did something, you torture them, and if they did it, they'll confess. That's the idea anyway. And she's like, "What confessions do you have?" And he basically, without coming out and saying it, basically says that all of his fortunes are just here. He is not the wealthy person that he has shown himself to do. And then Portia goes on with a long speech, and she asks for music. She's like, "Oh, wait then, make your choice. I'm locked in one of those. If you love me, you'll find me out." Okay. So she's had enough. Go make the choice. And then she tells people to play music. This is kind of interesting, this background music. Music is a big part of Shakespearean plays. There's music going on when Romeo and Juliet meet. There's music when Bassanio's making his choice here for Portia. This is a very Shakespearean thing. And you could take a college class on music and Shakespeare. It's a fine class. I encourage you to take it. But she talks about the music, and it's a win-win situation for Portia. If he chooses wrong, he goes out in style, right, with his wonderful music. If he wins, it's like a fanfare for kings. So there's great music associated with his winning. And music is also like wedding bells. That was mentioned there. Let's look at this song real quick. Okay. This song could be a clue. Tell me where is fancy bred, or in the heart or in the head. How begot, how nourish it. So what makes someone fancy? Is it in the heart? Is it in the head? It's endangered in the eyes. If you look, there's danger in looking at what you perceive. With gazing fed and fancy dies in the cradle where it lies. If you look at something to be fancy, that you're looking at it's wrong. That's not the truth, right? That's where the truth dies. So this could be a clue. Don't look for anything fancy. So Bassanio makes his choice, and he learned the lessons from the song. He points that out. So may the outward shows be least themselves. So what we show is not what we really are. Let me read that line. So may the outward shows be least themselves. How many times have you had a bad day and someone says, hey, how you doing? And you smile and you're like, oh, everything's fine. That outward show is a lie. We do this all the time. Okay. And Bassanio continues, the world is deceived with ornament. Right? We are all deceived by the bright things that we see. We don't see the real nature. So he sees this. Bassanio is the same way. He is deceiving by ornament. He's pretending to be rich and wealthy with these fancy clothes and the servants. He's not. And he mentions at one point, beauty is at a cost. In Shakespearean days, people would have these beautiful wigs. There was no such thing as artificial hair. And something people would do is they would cut the hair off of corpses and use that in wigs. Okay, so here we have corpses creating beauty. So beauty is at a cost of death. And he discounts gold right away, right? And then he discounts silver just as quickly. Many men desire it, right? That's what the silver casket says. Who chooses me shall get what many men desire. Well, that right there introduces a conflict. It's man versus man, pitting people against themselves, and Bassanio doesn't want that. So he turns to lead. And in his speech, he talks about lead promising nothing. Its paleness and humility. Wow, I misspelled that. Humility. Its paleness and humility is eloquence, right? This is beautiful. This is not putting out some false showing. So, in a way, Bassanio is guided by this idea of truth. Truth hurts. Truth is hard. Truth is ugly. Bam, he goes for the lead. And what does he see in there? He opens it up, and there's the beautiful picture of Portia. And Portia has her little comment when he chooses this about her aside is how all the other passions fleet to air as doubtful thoughts, a rash embraced despair, a shuddering fear, and green-eyed jealousy. O love, be moderate, a lie thy ecstasy, in measure reign thy joy. Think back again to Romeo and Juliet when Friar Lawrence tells Romeo and Juliet to love moderately. Don't love fast or you'll all be gone here. Portia's saying the same thing. She wants to love moderately. She wants it to last a long time. She doesn't want these bad thoughts. She doesn't want jealousy to jump into her relationship. Here's a little side note. Green-eyed jealousy, right? We all know jealousy is green. Guess where it came from? Right there. Shakespeare. The first time it was ever mentioned. It's right here in this play. Okay. So he reads this note, and you choose not by view, chance is fair, and choose is true. So you didn't choose by looks, right? And that was good, and you won. Since this fortune falls to you, be content and seek no new, right? You've won, right? You don't need to go looking for anybody else. If you be well pleased with this, and hold your fortune for your bliss, turn to where your lady is, and claim her with a loving kiss. So the note is telling him, you've won the lady. Go kiss her. She's yours. And Bassanio does something kind of interesting. He talks about how beautiful the picture is, how wonderful it is, and then he says how ugly it is compared to the real Portia. So Portia's more beautiful. That's great. And he goes up to Portia, and he says that he is coming by note, but he leaves the choice up to her, which is kind of nice. So he's not going to just marry her by contract. He's going to give her the choice to marry him. So she accepts. You see me, Lord Bassanio, where I stand, such as I am, though for myself alone I would not be ambitious in my wish to wish myself much better. Yet for you I would be terrible. I would treble 20 times myself, 1,000 times more fair, 10,000 times more rich. She is accepting him, right? She wants to be everything Bassanio. For you, I'll be what I am. I wish I was 20,000 times more rich for you, but you have me as I am, and that's it. And she mentions how she's an unlessoned girl, unschooled, unpracticed. She doesn't know how to be a wife. Portia is used to running Belmont, this huge manor with this huge estate with many servants, and she's running everything. No, she doesn't know how to be a wife. She doesn't know how to be second fiddle. She doesn't know how to let somebody else do everything. But in her speech, everything is transferred to Bassanio. He won. She is no longer the ruler, and she gives it all away. She has to now change from being the ruler of the state, right, the man of the house, if you will, to Bassanio being the man of the house. This is a big change, and we'll see that she isn't quite ready to do this yet. And then she takes off a ring and she gives it. And she says, my lord, I give them, the servants, the manor, and everything else, I give them with this ring, which when you are part from, lose or give away, let it presage the ruin of your joy, and be my vantage to exclaim on you. So here's my ring. Take it with everything else. And when you lose this ring, you lose me and everything else. It's kind of like a wedding ring. And this is big. This is not a small thing in Shakespeare, right? Portia gives all the land, the wealth, the rulership with this ring. If he loses it, the love is gone. His ownership of Belmont is gone. It's all gone. And Bassanio takes it. It's like, madam, I'm bereft of all words. I am totally speechless. Of course, he doesn't stop talking. And he goes on to explain that this gift, when this ring parts from this finger, then parts life from hence, and then be bold to say Bassanio's dead. If I ever lose this ring, it's because I am dead. Okay, this is Shakespeare. You know Shakespeare screws things up, right? So when we have this precious gift, here's this ring. When you lose it, you lose me and everything else. And he says, I will never lose this ring unless I'm dead. Guess what's gonna happen? Yep, that ring is gonna go. And it's not gonna be a surprise to you. All right, so they swap the ring, consider it a marriage ring if you wish. And then Gratiano speaks up, and he made a deal. He has fallen in love with Nerissa, and Nerissa agrees to marry him if Portia and Bassanio get married. So it's interesting that the relationship between Gratiano and Nerissa parallels that of Bassanio and Portia. It's interesting also that Gratiano makes a bet of 1,000 ducats for the first male child. It's like they're taking their emotions, right, their love, and they're reducing it to money. We see that's kind of one of the minor undercurrents of this play. Love and money go hand in hand. It's an interesting conversation to have. Would you marry for love, or would you marry for money? And Shakespeare touches on that. If you ever get a chance to reread this play in its entirety, think of it with that in mind. Love or money. Okay. Lorenzo shows up. And Salerio, there we go. Salerio was coming to Belmont with a letter from Antonio. He runs into Lorenzo and Jessica, and so brings Lorenzo along. He's got this letter from Antonio. Lorenzo is welcomed by Portia and everybody else. They are treated as equals. Okay? So Jessica is now being welcomed into a Christian household, if you will. And we have news of Shylock. Shylock wants the bond. He wants to cut off a pound of Antonio's flesh. Antonio is broke. Right? They ask at one point, how is Shylock? And we are told he is not sick unless he is in his mind. And he's not well unless also in his mind. Again, this reminds me of Romeo and Juliet when Romeo asks Balthazar, how's Juliet? And Balthazar thinks Juliet is dead. Remember? And Romeo says, nothing can be ill, she's well. And Balthazar is like, well, all is well, she's not ill. Which is a total lie. And here, Antonio is undone. We have the fleece analogy. Jason and the Argonauts went off to look for the fleece. Hercules at one time went out to get the golden fleece. And Gratiano says, Antonio will be glad of our success. We are the Jasons, and we have won the fleece. We've won the prize. And Bassanio confesses again that he's not just poor, he's in Antonio's debt. He owes Antonio a lot of money. And Antonio is indebted to Shylock because of him. So the news is Antonio's broke. Shylock wants revenge. Portia wants to know how much do you owe, and it's like 3,000 ducats. And Portia's like, holy cow, give him 3,000 gold, give him 6,000, right, and be done with it. And Antonio has written a letter to Bassanio. And this letter, do we actually get to read the letter? Yeah, it's very short. Sweet Bassanio, my ships have all miscarried. My creditors grow cruel. His ships have miscarried. They didn't bring any money back. His creditors grow cruel. That would be Shylock wanting to cut off a pound of flesh. My estate is very low. My bond to the Jew is forfeit. I owe Shylock a pound of flesh, is what he's saying here. And since in paying it, it is impossible I should live. This is going to kill me. Shylock is going to kill Bassanio. Or not Bassanio. Shylock is going to kill Antonio. Since it is impossible I should live, all debts are cleared between you and I. So Antonio tells Bassanio, you don't owe me anything. All debts between us are cleared. We're fine. And if I might but see you at my death, notwithstanding, use your pleasure. You know, if you can, come and see me when Shylock comes to kill me. And if your love do not persuade you to come, let not my letter. Now that line, if your love do not persuade you to come, let not my letter, can be taken two ways. If your love for me won't have you here. Then don't show up. But Bassanio just got married. So that love could be Portia. If Portia doesn't let you come, don't let my letter. So he reads that, and Portia's like, oh, love, dispatch all business and be gone. So Portia's like, shh, go away. Go right now and take off. So they're going to postpone the wedding until he gets back. And Bassanio's like, I'll go, I'll hurry. And he says this, no bed shall ever be guilty of my stay. No rest will be the imposer twixt us twain. Nothing will be between us. No bed will I use. Now, we could take this to mean a couple of things. He's not married yet. He's still a bachelor. So he's saying, I won't see any other women while I'm gone. Or it could be literal, and he won't sleep until he gets back. Which is, you know, it's a long way to Venice from Belmont. So that's, I'm thinking it's more the literal. He's not going to sleep with anybody else until he gets back. So that's a big scene. And we have the plot line of the rings introduced. So we know something's going to happen with those rings and with Bassanio's promise not to sleep with anybody else. The whole thing with which cask is the right cask to choose Portia, that's done. It's the lead cask, and Bassanio picked it. Shylock's revenge and Antonio's bond is now the forefront of this play. Jessica and Lorenzo, they're successful, they're married, they landed up in Belmont with Portia. That's all good. Bassanio and Portia, they're all married. That's all good. So that's all on the back burner. The big things now with the play. Shylock and Antonio and the rings. Okay. This is a big scene. Take 2 days to go over this. Today, Monday, and Tuesday, the 20th and 21st. Go over it a couple times. Pay attention to what's happening in it. Enjoy it. There's a lot going on. If you have questions or comments, send me an email. I'll be more than happy to ask.